Happy birthday. It's officially your birthday.
It
Yes.
is.
Happy birthday.
Yes, at the
Yes.
time of recording, this is my birthday. I'm going to leave this little bit in because I
You're
got
fine.
myself a cake.
Oh my God. Brilliant.
So, oh, the strawberry fell off. It's a white chocolate crepe cake from Max Brenner.
Yeah.
And I've been kind of hanging out for it for the past like hour because I ordered it recently. Alrighty, let's get into it. At 9:25 on Halloween night in 1992, 11 million people tuned in to watch the BBC broadcast featuring legendary television presenter Sir Michael Parkinson, presented as a live broadcast of reporters in the home of a young family experiencing strange happenings. This would become the most controversial special the BBC had ever broadcast, so controversial that it was banned from ever being aired again. Why? Because the British public believed that what they saw was real. Today, we are talking about Ghostwatch, the movie that fooled a nation and caused one of the biggest public outcries in British television history. Today, we have Richard Hoggarth back with us again from our TikTok lives. Hi, Richard. How are you?
Hello, everyone. And hello, Michelle. Yvonne. It's great to be here. It's because I know you as obviously Michelle, but yeah, the
More than
Yvonne.
fine.
But it's great to be here. And especially it was very strange to be kind of asked to do Ghostwatch because I'd never seen it until you recommended it to me, and then watching it and realizing how massive a part of British history it's been. It was kind of like it's been a bit of a no-brainer. So
It wasn't
yeah.
something you heard about growing up?
No.
Oh, I thought it was like this BBC boogeyman that everyone was going to be
I,
talking about.
I'm going to drop a bombshell right now on you. I didn't hear about it until 2019, and yeah, when I first discovered social media, went on Instagram.
That does make
So
sense, to be
from
honest. Yeah.
because because a lot of people I knew who were older in the physical media collecting scene, they had like VHSs, they had the old DVDs, but I grew up knowing nothing of its kind of legacy other than what it eventually inspired with like Inside Number Nine, and obviously you recommending the film to me. I was like, okay, cool, I'll check it out, and I was just blown away by it. I still think it's one of the most impressive. Sorry to get a bit too ahead, but I genuinely thought it was such an impressive piece of work, especially like for television and that.
This is the first essentially found footage film that was initially created in the 1980s by Stephen Volk.
Yeah, the only thing that would predate it is Cannibal Holocaust. So in preparation for this, I've actually done a lot of kind of reflecting and looking at kind of the chronology of kind of like the found footage film. So if you think Cannibal Holocaust is the first, like the primary, okay, you had a group of people make a fake film about it, and Ruggiero Diodato took the actors and paid them to take I think a 3-month vacation. They just disappeared. So when he was like, "Oh yeah, these people have disappeared. They've actually gone," and it helped believe that. But this is the first time, and you can really see it, especially in the found footage subgenre. This is the first time somebody tries for realism, achieves realism, and everybody else afterwards is after the same thing.
Exactly. Like this has a
Mm.
lot to kind of answer for with all the found footage stuff, the Blair Witch, for the WNUF
Mm.
Halloween special, very much so. And also with Late Night
Yeah,
with the Devil that's coming out very soon, which I cannot wait to see. It's going to be so good.
that looks fantastic. As soon as I heard David Dasmalkian was in it, I was like, I'm in. That's all I
It's
needed. But
directed
yeah,
by Australian guys, so I'm happy with that too.
of course you are.
So yeah, this was initially supposed to be, or initially wanted to be, a 6-part series that
Mm.
Stephen Volk wanted to do. But then in the end, his agent's like, how about we just turn it into a special for the BBC? And he just condensed
Yeah,
it down into one thing, turned it into what would have been the last episode in his series. And then we have Ghostwatch.
Yeah, and this is the thing that I don't know if people from outside of the UK kind of know, is the BBC were very much known for like a thing called Play for Today. So they had a lot of kind of time slots for like half hour one act plays, and they were really advocates of the arts. And then during the research, there was a thing called Screen One. So it had like a 90-minute time slot to create a piece of work. So it would be a feature length episode or a film. And the fact that that actually does open on the kind of episode or the film is it has the Screen One kind of moniker. And then it not only that, it has a lot of the kind of it does actually say like by Stephen Volk, and they don't really, like you say, they like I think in some of our preamble you were saying about like that they weren't really making it a kind of, they were telling people up front that it was a, you know, a piece of drama. But again, I think something that maybe people don't know is we have programs in the UK called Crime Watch. And I'm a bit too young for like Hospital Watch and Train Watch, but they had things like that. So to have a program called Ghostwatch, that's where it really kind of goes into that kind of realism, basically.
Yeah, it just fitted in so well, being that it was essentially meant to be a parody of Crime Watch. It just fitted in and seemed so believable. And it was also Stephen's idea to actually have real people actually play themselves during this. And that added such a different level of realism as well, that made people think it was just so real as well. But the BBC, they actually put in precautions to make sure that they weren't fooling people, so they couldn't have anyone say, you just deliberately misled us. They were like, okay, well, we're going to have a writing credit at the end. We're going to have an intro at the start that actually tells you, apart from it being a Screen One production, that it's a work of fiction that's going to blur the lines between fiction and reality. But being that it aired at the time it aired, which was 9:25, which normally things air on the half hour, some people think that they were misled into watching it a little bit later, because you know obviously you tune in at the half hour, that everyone missed that particular intro and that the BBC was trying to mislead people, but they weren't. I actually spoke to some people on my Instagram. I just put out the shout out saying, anyone who watched the original broadcast, can you let me know? And obviously back then they weren't meant to be looking out for little clues about if it was real or not. But I had some people who kind of even seemed a little offended that they were fooled. They're like, well, there wasn't social media, so how are we to know? But then I spoke to a guy in Ireland and he was like, oh, it was on the radio, it was in magazines, like it was everywhere. Everyone knew. How did they fall for it?
Yeah. So when doing my research, I found Leslie Manning was talking very much about kind of realism and how she was after like making it very much like that program. And she was very much like, I wasn't really inspired by anything fictional. So again, that kind of comes into the conversation of like, was it inspired by other things? But then what was interesting in the documentary I saw was that which is very kind of, I'm kind of very much on the side of the filmmakers on this kind of thing, especially at the time, and obviously other things I've watched and listened about the BBC at this time, was that they had brought this up to the BBC saying there were potential problems for this, and the BBC were like, no, it's fine. Or, you know, in the meetings at the higher ups, it was kind of just swept aside a little bit. And then once it came out, became the kind of phenomenon it had become, it then became like, oh, right, we need to now deal with this. And it's things like Doctor Who and other programs that the BBC have kind of worked on and developed have had similar kind of issues.
Yeah. But yeah, leading up to it, they did try their best to let people know. Like there was, I think the magazine is Time Daily. I think you might have a magazine called that.
Probably, yeah. I know Radio Times is a big one. Like that's where a lot of like the TV listings and like articles are. But yeah, I'm pretty sure like Time Daily. I'm unfortunately I'm just not familiar with all the kind of newspapers and article sites.
Because one of those magazines had a 2-page spread that really made it
Mm,
obvious that it wasn't
mm,
real. And then when you had TV guide listings, you'd find that it would say it's a movie, it's a special, it's a mockumentary.
mm.
And there were even some that even had a cast listing, so you could actually see that the doctor that
Yeah,
Michael speaks to throughout the presentation is just an actor. They never hid it.
yeah,
It's just that people didn't think they actually needed to seek anything out. But then again, a lot of people that night were probably watching something else, didn't pay attention to anything else, saw, oh, there's Michael Parkinson. Oh, there's Sarah Green. Honey, did you want to stay up and watch this? Because it was a Saturday night. They're letting their kids stay up to watch it, which ended
yeah.
up being a bit of a problem for a lot of children afterwards.
Yeah, it's that old trademark, isn't it? With the production of this, I was really fascinated to find out that it took 2 months to shoot this. So normally with kind of productions like this, like a single episode in the UK is round about 2 weeks. It's about 10 days. In the US, it's about 7 and 8. So it depends. They might have like a day, the odd eighth day is usually a day for like insert shots and things like that. But for this, because it's obviously like a movie, it's like a special and like a one-off kind of event. The fact that it had 2 months was kind of felt like I was a bit surprised because it might have been like a month, but they had all of July that year, 92. They did all of the house stuff first. And what is really interesting is if you watch the entire episode, you notice the kids are up during the night. And that's very odd because kids can only work usually around about 2 hours on a film set. And what they did is they kind of black bagged the house. So what we do like on indie film shoots is you get like black bin bags and kind of paste the windows to make it look like night. Well, what they did is they had the entire house in July kind of covered with black felt and that's if you and I was like, I couldn't believe the kind of level of craft because even when you get close to the windows in some of those shots, you can't notice that.
Mm.
And then all of the parky kind of studio stuff that was all done in August, and that was done a kind of that was the last little sections because then they were able to then play all the video that they'd shot on in July, but then they were doing new video tricks. That had been one of the first times they had like a video wall like that that the Doctor and Parky look at, and it is just kind of groundbreaking, like to see all of these kind of techniques. And again, why I think it's lasted, even though it's dated, because it goes for so much realism. It really was using cutting edge technology right up until the last very kind of moment till it broadcast. And then it may have been out of date, but you felt the kind of realism that was there. I mean, the only thing that I found that Sarah Green was commenting on, she said if she was on a real set, they wouldn't be touching like the earwig. So an earwig is like just a kind of earpiece that they get communications from the director or producer, and she was like, "Yeah, I wouldn't touch it so much in that." But even then, like you don't notice it. Like
Mm.
it's so kind of subtle a kind of thing that you go, oh right, yeah, of course she's communicating, and that's the kind of visual language that they were adding, a little bit filmic, a little bit realism, but it all added to the kind of kind of wonder of the project.
They even went so far to even add a live number that was active that night that you could call, which I believe did go through to the BBC, but was usually used for a different television show, I believe. And not to mislead people, they decided to put a recording in front of all the calls saying, this is a work of fiction, this is not real, before they actually let anyone speak to an operator. But they ended up getting between 20 and 30,000 calls in the first hour, to the point where they actually jammed up the board, and then people weren't getting the message anymore. They were going straight through, or they were getting interruptions or being engaged. And that was something that was really adding to the idea that what was happening on the screen was real, because everything that they were experiencing, with little girls were experiencing, people thought they were experiencing at home as well. With the alleged Pipes, our villain of the story.
Yeah, Mr. Pipes.
Mr.
And
Pipes.
that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, they really went into like using the I think it was the Crime Watch number, that it actually did work. And again, that's kind of where a lot of the kind of production side of it really works. Because when I first watched it, I was looking at the actors in the thing. I didn't know kind of what to expect, other than it was a controversial kind of piece, and I knew it was fake or it was a dramatization. But what really surprised me is, other than obviously Parkinson, and I kind of had seen Sarah Green at that time. I hadn't seen Mike on the phones, but there was an actor. He's the American kind of doctor who's quite early in the film, in the piece. I'd seen him in some other things, like other pieces of film and that, but that was the only person I clocked, and I was like, right, okay, I've seen him before as an actor. So I was like, I knew that. But then if you look at like those kind of actors, they're quite like ordinary. They don't really stand out, and that's kind of what's great about kind of Britain. We're very much theatre based. A lot of the actors kind of blend in. You don't notice them unless they are in like big Hollywood blockbusters, like an Alan Rickman. So they were able to then use a great stock company of actors that could really sell this, along with your Michael Parkinsons. And
when I initially watched it, the moment I saw the two girls' beds that was supposed to be filmed 2 weeks before that night, as soon as I saw it, I go, isn't that Enfield Poltergeist? Isn't that what the story that we're being told? And as I'm watching it, I'm like, this is the exact same story. So being like a horror person and knowing this story, straight away I was like, wait, didn't you guys know about this? You would have seen it all over the news, because there was a report where they were actually talking to the girls from it, and they were actually trying to prove one of the girls was a liar, because everyone was watching her to see if she was lying about the activity, if she was faking it, if she was making it up just to get some attention. And while watching it, I was like, well, now, if you've seen Conjuring 2, it's the exact same story, pretty much plays out the exact same way. So that was one thing as well for me that clocked it as fake, obviously watching it only recently, to say, well, it's you've all heard this story before, or at least most of you would have heard this. How's it you haven't heard it? And then people were saying, oh, but they involved children in the story. That's what made it scarier. And you're like, well, that was the Enfield Poltergeist. It involved children, unfortunately. And these girls did a fantastic job. I can see why people were convinced by it.
Yeah, they're actually sisters, and I think that they're actually real sisters. Yeah, like, that's something I found out during the research. It was incredible, because they don't look similar, but the fact is that they're so near each other, and I think that's what really sells them. The thing you were bringing up about the Enfield haunting, it is the Enfield one, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's Enfield Poltergeist, yeah.
That's the Enfield Poltergeist. The thing you brought up about the Enfield Poltergeist was really interesting, in that it might have hit the tabloid headlines at the time, but it wouldn't have made a really big mark, because a lot of what we now know, especially in kind of UK culture, like Most Haunted and a lot of the paranormal stuff over here, all really started with Ghostwatch. And then a lot of people were inspired by that to then kind of, I think, go back and rediscover like the Enfield Poltergeist. Because I remember, I think it was the same year as Conjuring 2, there was a Timothy Spall miniseries. There have been so many kind of tellings and retellings. Realistically, in the UK, other than the Christmas BBC plays that they would do, like half-hour kind of episodes. They would do kind of every Christmas or every odd Christmas. That was really kind of, again, the only kind of ghost seasonal things that I'm aware of for myself. So it really didn't kind of really take a hold of the public until Ghostwatch, which, again, like, you can understand why after watching it.
One of the other documentaries I saw about it, the one that was pretty much saying that they did try to mislead people, was actually putting pipes at the very beginning in the girl's room, and then, you know, people, you know, he's in there, you rewind the film, and then suddenly he's not. That is something I think that Mike Flanagan has probably taken a little bit for The Haunting of Hill House, by actually putting an image in the background that you're not supposed to pay attention to, or was not a focal point. But when you see it, you gasp. Because I remember the first time I saw Pipes watching it, I was watching it looking like it was filmed through a potato, the copy I watched. And it still got me.
That bedroom scene where you can see it just by the curtain, I was like yourself, I just paused it and I was like, that there's something odd there. And again, like that, you know, like you said, Mike Flanagan must have been like inspired, especially for Haunting Hill House, because everyone was doing like counts, weren't they, of like the amount of ghosts in scenes and where they were. And you look at like Ghostwatch, and there were ones I didn't even know. Like I as I say, like during the watching of the documentary about the making of the project, there was a moment where the camera pans against the pane of glass, and you can see someone in kind of like old kind of Viking armor, like a cloth and that looked like a Viking with a kind of a bloodied streak across the face. And I think it's less than 30 seconds later, it pans behind them and it's not there. And it's those kind of clever gags, how they did that. Oh, it's fantastic.
But it's not only just they did that in that house, the fact that they actually let those things basically come into the studio with having the audience interact by saying, oh, I saw this, and then telling stories of someone who lived in that house and the reason why you'd hear the pipes knocking and the reason why the glory hole, the cupboard under the stairs was locked, the reason for all of it. And this is another reason why people started thinking that since it was coming into the studio, why it may have been coming into their phones when they were trying to call and they were engaged, or they weren't getting, you know, they got through and weren't, you know, wasn't kind of going anywhere. That's why people were starting to think maybe this is real. If it's affecting Parky, it's probably affecting us too.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, especially when you see him at the end of the kind of project. Like that's like you can see like through that he's such a dismissive character to everything, and then it's just that kind of realization of what's been happening. It's like that really gets you as well, especially because watching him interview like Billy Connolly and so many of the celebrities of the time as I was growing up, like his talk show was massive. So then to kind of go take a step back and then watch this just before I was watching him and kind of conscious of him, it was like, wow, like, yeah, you can, that's really cool.
He was still very much himself, you know, getting like, you know, having like a bit of a giggle as he was talking about certain things. So it still seems so real. And even when you see Craig Charles doing it as well, still seems so natural, still seemed himself. Hard to not see him as a Lister for me. I just can't see him being anything else. I know he's on Coronation Street, but it's always going to be Red Dwarf for me. But the fact that the story wasn't always contained in the house, it was also spreading out into the street as well. So it was becoming more than just this house, and he was starting to discover it with everyone else.
Yeah, no, you perfectly got that with the kind of idea of that. Yeah, like the different stories, and you could hear the mythology kind of growing throughout the whole episode. It's like the film, it's brilliant. Yeah, and like seeing Craig Charles in it, like again, because for me, I always knew before Red Dwarf, I knew him for a program called Robot Wars. I don't know if it's like that, called that in America, or it might be called something a bit different now, but yeah, like he took over from Jeremy Clarkson and he was fantastic. Like watch that. So I knew him from kind of live programming, or drama, would it be called? It'd be like real life programming.
Yeah.
And and just to then see him in this, but be completely different, like a real version of Craig Charles. Again, it just adds so much to what they were trying to do, and it just nails everything. Because the thing that really gets me is when they watch the footage back in the studio and nothing's there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gets you as well, because you're watching it and you're going, wow, like they've really paid attention all along the way to try and keep everyone guessing, is this real, is this kind of a fiction, is this real, is this not, and what is actually going on here.
With having Sarah Green being the person in the house and also having a husband on the switchboard, could it have been kind of a bad move for them to actually have children's TV presenters doing this?
Ooh. I think so, but the thing as well is that they were known for doing like Crime Watch. That, like, Sarah Green had said her and Mike had done every watch under the sun. So for them to kind of be picked for this made so much sense, and it was something that was interesting for her, at least, because she'd acted in the past. So it was something that was that kind of blend of both worlds, that acting and presenting. And I think I think ultimately the thing I personally take away from Ghostwatch is I don't think they made a wrong decision. And I think whilst it may have hurt the BBC short term, I think it helped everyone long term. Because even someone like myself, I must have been about 4, maybe, about 4 when it aired. The idea that even I can go back to it in my mid-30s, discover it and get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that I think is something very, very powerful, that it, as a piece of, and in fact it's from Britain as well. No, sorry, but yeah, it's that thing of, like, they've really put a lot of time and effort into the scripting, into giving, like, Parkinson and Sarah and Mike free reign to improvise dialogue as well. If it was feeling a bit clunky, to have a take where they could just try and be a bit more relaxed and improvise. And then, they had the time to really shoot the effects and shoot the kind of scare sequences,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the thing that will always make or break anything. And I find the problem now is that so many people get lazy with those kind of things, whereas this, it's so kind of nonchalant.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love about it.
Without giving too much away about the ending, that was definitely something where I feel, if you've reached this point in the film, that ending really kind of gave it away that it wasn't real. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it just, like, something about
Yeah.
that just really goes, yeah, this is not real. It's, I wouldn't say ridiculous, but it's getting a little too beyond belief. Yet still
Yeah.
people
No,
thought that's what happens in the studio.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, because I think it goes that kind of next step up, if you know what I mean. It's like a very theatrical ending, and that's not to take away from what they've done. I think it as a piece of drama, which is what they've always said it is. I think it naturally goes to that kind of point. So with the ending, and obviously how they obviously ramped it up as a piece of drama, I think the thing that makes it stick with people is still, and the reason that you brought up that great point of people still believing it is you've still got the first hour in which they were delicately weaving all those kind of threads. And I think if that kind of first hour, I mean, even first half an hour, hadn't worked as well as it had, it wouldn't have carried you to like the next half hour, and then obviously to the finale, where they do amp it up a little bit more and give you that kind of a little bit. It's I hate using that term, but it's that kind of spectacle. It's what you kind of go to, event cinema, or you watch interest, drama. You need that kind of resolution, and to have it as kind of chaotic as it is, it kind of fits the piece that they were making.
So it ended up being that there were 30,000 complaints within 1 hour block about Ghostwatch after it aired. One of them was actually from a woman who wanted to get compensation from the BBC for her husband's pants because he shit himself during the show. And I think one of my favorite complaints I heard about was actually that one of them was from Michael's own mother. And for some reason, I would have loved her to just be like, Michael.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't surprise me, because for me growing up, I think the name changed to what I know it as, but the BBC is because we all pay a license fee. So ITV and Channel 4, you can have a TV, but you can only watch them technically because they require adverts. But because BBC is publicly funded, that's where you need the license. And basically, they, being a public system, they have to have a thing called, I knew the program was points of view. So people would write in, and the amount of the complaints I've heard just for other programs is ridiculous. So that there was a program and people probably just spent the half hour or hour reading Ghostwatch complaints, it would be incredible. Yeah.
I actually saw it was an interview, or not, it was an interview, it was a show that Anne Robinson was doing about certain complaints that people had put in. And even she was reading the complaints going like, you're an idiot. You fell for it. Aren't you a fool? Kind of thing. Like, she was just kind of like, it's your own fault if you fell for it. But even though we're making jokes about it, this actually has been apparently one of this single-handedly caused a lot of PTSD in children after they viewed it, and even actually led to someone's suicide 5 days afterwards because he thought he was experiencing the pipe knocks in his own home, which is unfortunate. I do know his name. I prefer not to say, just because I feel like there's going to be enough videos out there with his name in it. I really don't want to bring more things up for his family. But it caused such a stir. And to think that it was just a simple production, let's just have some fun on Halloween, that it's just left such a mark that they had no idea what they would ever do.
Yeah. And I think that kind of sums up good horror filmmaking. I remember my dad talking to me about The Exorcist and the kind of impact that had, and obviously causing people to unalive themselves and things of that nature. It's never easy, and you think and I think for us looking back, we always go, how is that possible? I think the thing is that you are dealing with a very different time where technology and social media and everything's kind of taken away, but you're also at a simpler time as well, because of what those films and what they were able to do at that time led to other things. I remember saying to you, when as soon as you brought up this as a topic for us, I went, I've got to talk about Inside Number 9 at some point, because that for me was the moment that, we've been talking about, how did you get fooled? Well, I love Inside Number 9. I think it's a great TV show, and I was watching their Halloween special, and the TV starts glitching. But where I'm from and where in my local area, I've been known to have bad TV reception. So the fact that the TV starts glitching, I was like, oh great, the TV's going. And I was messaging someone at the time, and we were both watching it. And the TV then goes, and then the broadcast goes. Now, what made this so kind of eerie is and this is the impact of Ghostwatch in my view, is in the UK, in Wales, and I think maybe Ireland and Scotland as well. I don't know if they break it up that much, but we all have different announcers. So it says at 9 o'clock, this program, you are now watching Inside Number Nine, and you'll have someone, for where I am in England, there'll be someone who's English, someone in Scotland, and they managed to get all of the different announcers to perfectly go, you are now watching Inside Number Nine. And then when the TV kind of turns off, they all went, sorry for the interruption. We are now going to put an old repeat of an episode on. And it was as soon as that happened, I left the room. I was like, right, okay, I'm gone. And then somebody went, as I was saying, the person I was messaging was like, are you watching? Are you still watching? I was like, nah, why am I watching a repeat of an episode I've seen? They're like, it's not. It's the episode. I was like, you're joking. And basically, there's a moment in the episode where Reese and Steve tweet. They actually tweeted at that time in real life. This is literally, they were creating a kind of realism that could not have been accomplished without it. And like at the end of the episode, them as characters in the episode die. Their Wikipedia page was changed to that was the day of their deaths.
Oh wow!
It is insane. Like, this is what I mean. It is such a weird, crazy kind of episode. That was my Ghostwatch, but I can't have that without watching Ghostwatch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the fact is that they were able to use what Ghostwatch had at the time, and then go to a whole new level, because the BBC had never done anything like that after Ghostwatch. And the first thing they do is they do that Inside Number Nine special. And it was like everyone just applauded the BBC, because there were people literally trying to figure out what was going on as the episode was going on. But then again, you've got people figuring it out as it's going on. And you can see they've had to up the amount of realism as well.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
So
sorry for the tangent. But
no, more than funny. Actually, I need to watch this myself now. But
oh yeah,
after all of this, they completely scrubbed that Ghostwatch ever happened. It was actually nominated for a BAFTA, and they decided the BBC had it that nomination withdrawn. You weren't allowed to talk about it at the BAFTAs for 10 years. According to the BBC, this did not exist. But that wasn't until they started having a bit of a fan following online. And on its 10th anniversary, they decided to do a DVD release. And this is when you actually find out that Stephen Falk was actually saying, I basically made this as a kind of a commentary on how the public relies on the media too much.
Just to kind of help unpack some of that, like with the BBC, that's the BBC. Like, even though they're a public organization, they don't like if there's controversy like that, they don't want to know, kind of thing. And that's my personal opinion, like, on the matter. But the thing is that because it was there to fill a time slot, they had a spare time slot. They shot an episode, it filled the time slot. They were happy on that respect. Because of the backlash, they were then like, it doesn't exist. But then because it starts making money, and then people are interested and they want it to make money, that's when they kind of show interest. But what made me really interested with the DVD and Blu-ray releases and things, they don't release it. They license it out.
Mm-hmm.
So even then, they're still disowning it to some respect. And then, like you said, with Stephen Volk, like making that comment, it's perfect. And again, that's why Ghostwatch, I think, still has that legacy. It still lives on because you've now got everyone talking about the project in as open a way as possible. The fact is that we live in a time where we're literally being lied to by the media, by social media, by everything, and it's just what can you trust? And this show just will this episode, this Ghostwatch, just this beautiful thing, will consistently be there to just promote those kind of ideas and themes, and just be a shining light for filmmakers, film fans. It's great.
This was actually the movie that really made that there were children who found horror was their favorite genre, because it was something that scared them so much. Because around the time this came out, the video nasties were still pretty prevalent. This is around the time where you would have had things happening with Child's Play 2 and whatnot, give or take whatever year it was. But the BBC essentially made a video nasty without even realizing they had done it.
No, and that's the thing. I think it's it's it it's a ghost story, and they were known for their ghost stories. I think that kind of were kind of like, oh, how scary can it be? Because some of the one of the stories I heard from the filming of it. So I think they were filming near the end of the climax of Ghostwatch, and somebody had come down to Elstree Studios where they were filming, one of the big studios where they filmed like big stuff, and they watched as this cameraman was filming the floor, and then they were filming like dirty kind of shots. So like not a full kind of shot of like Parkinson, you get that kind of half a face, maybe a little bit more. And everyone was just kind of going, what are they doing? They have no clue. They have no clue. The people making this are idiots. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I think it always come back to a little bit about the faith in filmmakers. And you always get those stories of people with money never believing in the filmmakers. And like you said, they kind of unknowingly have made a gem, and that's the thing. They will always, and I think they're the best kind of circumstances for creative people to make it, where the person who has greenlit it has never read the script, because apparently there was stories I've heard that people higher up never even read the script, they never even looked at it, much in the title page, and went, oh, we're doing one of those kind of another watch programs, fine. And that's the thing, it goes unnoticed, and then when it becomes noticed, that's where everyone either wants to claim credit or they want to kind of bury it. And I think that's where, like, we've seen through, like, you talking about it, like that fans and people who are passionate, and it affected in a positive way. I know it's affected people negatively, and it's not me trying to dismiss that, because it does. I think it affects people, especially who make these things, because you don't ever want it to affect anyone that badly. But the people it's affected, it like positively, it's great that they've been able to share it and keep it alive. So people like me and you have become fans, and then we want to talk about it and share it.
Well, when it comes to most universities who are teaching screenwriting, apparently, or screenwriting or filmmaking in general, at least one student each semester is going to do their dissertation on this film. That's how much it just keeps going and going every single year. And it's, I don't know, something about a ghost story as well. It's almost kind of like every kid has been affected by a ghost story, and this just happened to be that generation's one, where before that it probably would have been Poltergeist. But then again, at that time, they knew that they were watching a movie, except for this time they didn't. I wouldn't say that it's a rite of passage for kids to get scared and get PTSD, but it is a bit of a rite of passage to watch a ghost story and get scared as well.
I think that's the thing. It's that I always remember one when I was at school, people would talk about The Exorcist being like scary and things like that, and I always remember being scared of like hiding under the covers of Dracula. Like my dad showed me that way too young,
Mhm.
and I think the fact that it was my choice, the fact that it was, I felt supported. I think that's what kids need, especially if you're looking to get into this kind of stuff. You should have parents who are there, present, supporting you, and then the kind of idea of that it is a movie, it is a piece of fiction, kind of helping you through that. It is, if it gets scary, you can turn it off,
Mhm.
and then like you say, but it's also that kind of badge you wear afterwards, like, do you know what, I did something brave there
Yeah.
as well. I watched something that was, oh wow, it's changed my life, and then because of that, you might then go make a film, or you might write a dissertation on it. And I think horror films, because I know you're a massive horror fan. Like, obviously, like, if people who follow you know this, yeah. He, and unfortunately, that's not my horror films. My horror films are more over this way. But like for us, horror films becomes like I want to be careful here, but it's like the chase. I
Mhm.
don't want to give off the wrong connotations, but it becomes a chase
Mm.
because when you're young and you're scared, and you enjoy being scared, it becomes that kind of chase on finding the next thing, or that next little gem that you really enjoy. And I think that's the thing with Ghostwatch, was it was just through a casual conversation with you, and you've passed this film on to me, and I'll try and pass it on to other people. So I think this is yeah, it's what a film.
Essentially, it's a video nasty just without gore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yes,
Because you would have thought people would have recorded it. Yeah, people would have recorded it off their TVs, because it's that era as well, and start sharing it. So you can imagine that, like, generations down, where people have then copied to copy, and it would have been like that thing. And that's really great. Yeah. You think about it, them banning it really made it like a video nasty.
it did. Like there are people who did have copies, and they were doing the thing of doing, do it down a generation, and they're actually selling on the black market for like $70 or $80 or something like that. So there actually was a
Yeah.
lucrative market for it. There was a want for it. But I think that, granted, how many years afterwards, 20, 22 years after, even if there was a time where they wanted to release it and actually broadcast it again, I think it would lose its mystique. How cool is it to say that you have something that's banned by the BBC?
Yeah, it would be pretty cool, because they don't ban things as often as like, that's why I think it became such a big deal. They don't tend to kind of do things that lightly. So the fact that this was a real big sticking point for, obviously, the British public and them, yeah, it became quite a thing. Yeah.
So, despite the controversies and everything that happened in the aftermath, this is going to be pretty much a staple for all horror fans from here on out. It's going to be the BBC's boogeyman for all of eternity. But I don't think you couldn't air it again. It would lose its mistake. It's going to lose everything that it's pretty much built for itself after the past 22 years.
I totally agree with you on that
Yeah.
one, because the thing is like, the DVD's out, the Blu-ray's been out. I think it's entered the kind of consciousness of everybody so much now, that to try and kind of then redo that, with the same kind of broadcast. I think if they ever try anything like this again, like how they did it with Inside Number Nine, um, you know, trying it in a different way would be the best approach. But again, will we see anything like that? It took them, just under 30 years to kind of attempt something similar.
It's reached a cult like status that you'll never ever get attached to another BBC thing ever again. And I will include something like Doctor Who in that, just because of the
Yeah.
mistake, just because of the controversy, just because there's just so much that was that just happened after such a little film that could.
Yeah, I mean, with Doctor Who, I think the reaction is more kind of anger with Doctor Who because of the them retaping over old episodes, and whilst we're getting them animated, we'll never have the original like broadcast for some of those stories, the complete stories. And whilst we have the complete like Monty Python, and like you said, we lost some Dad's Army and other things along the way. Like ultimately, you can't. Ghostwatch is that Mount Everest because of its legacy. It's like the one that, like, whilst we've heard the stories of, Monty Python getting the old slap on the wrist for being a bit controversial at the time, nothing will beat being banned by the BBC.
Well, thank you for being on the show today, Richard. I really, really appreciate it. I hope everyone at home has enjoyed our little talk with it today. I hope it really inspires you to go and watch it. It is available on DVD throughout mostly the UK. I find every copy I tend to find is a UK release, sometimes American. Isn't released in Australia, but you can find it on archive.org as well. That's how I originally saw it, which should be readily available in all countries. Hope to see you again, Richard, on the show. I'm glad to have you back again for more movie talk.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching, and I appreciate this for the bringing me on talking some Ghostwatch.
No worries at all. Hopefully everyone enjoyed. I hope you like and subscribe and share with your friends and family, and we'll see you again on the next one.